welcome. My name is Kelly James. I am a public involvement specialist and planner for the Portland District, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and I'm here to just help facilitate tonight's virtual meeting. The true stars are Selena Hart and Dustin Bankston. They'll be presenting. We currently have the chat off, just mainly to help focus the presentation, but around the end of the slide deck, I'll turn the chat on and folks can enter in questions. And since we have kind of a smaller crowd, you know, you should be able to get everyone's questions tonight. One thing is tonight's presentation is focused on current reservoir elevations and the forecast for the summer at the Willamette Valley dams and lakes. We aren't anticipating to cover any topics on current studies or projects. We're really focused just on the forecast this evening. So with that, I'll hand it over to Dustin and Selena.
Thanks, Kelly. And good evening, everyone. I'm Dustin Bankston. I'm the Operations Project Manager for the Willamette Basin and Rogue Basin projects. I've been working here for about 35 years, and I will tell you that every year is different and challenging in the Willamette. This is no exception to it. You're probably wondering why we're having a meeting so late. These are typically done in the spring. We kind of set a spring forecast and operation and kind of roll through the year. This has been a very unique spring for us. And so what we wanted to do tonight was just give a picture of where we are from an elevation standpoint in our reservoirs, kind of what some of the drivers are that are affecting our water management, to help folks understand where those opportunities are going to be and how our operations will change over the rest of the season. Can you advance the slide, Selena? Just as a reminder to folks, you know, the 13 dams in the Willamette Valley are operated as a system, and you can see that current snapshot of our storage, that total system storage to the left, and then individual projects throughout the basin. Selena will talk about in more detail kind of how we started the year and how things, as everybody knows, have gotten pretty dry, and our lack of rainfall in the spring, which is really important to our conservation season storage, just wasn't there this year. That being said, there's still a lot of stored water in the basin, a lot of opportunity as we not only provide opportunities for folks for recreation in the reservoirs, we're managing those flows to try to benefit water quality, fish passage, other needs downstream. And there's lots of demands on the system. And so as we balance it, and we just thought this year, given that it is a really unique spring for us, we would do an update for folks, kind of a forecast through the rest of the year. The teacup diagram is the place that we want to continue to steer folks to. There's a lot of information that can be had there if you're looking to go out to a reservoir or wondering how much water is coming out of one of our reservoirs. Those little orange hash marks that you see that look like dams, if you hover on those, you'll see inflow and outflow from any given reservoir. And then if you click on any one of those, you can find information on boat ramp elevations relative to where our water levels are. You can see water quality data. There's quite a bit of information that you can benefit from if you're trying to plan opportunities or understand how we're operating and why things may look a little different in the river than they normally do. So please take advantage of that. You can find the teacup diagram if you just Google Willamette Basin teacup diagram. It will be the first thing that pops up on your list. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. I'm sure we have some contact information at the end of the presentation. With that, I will move it over to Selena Hart so that she can really talk to the details that you came here to hear tonight.
Thanks, Dustin. Hey, everyone. Yeah, I'm Selena Hart. I'm the Chief of Reservoir Regulation Water Quality Section. So my team manages the forecasting and release planning along with operations. So I just wanted to give a little kind of discussion about what we're really looking at. And so I have this little schematic that we put together a while ago, and really what we're always looking at what the water levels are, what the weather conditions are for no matter what kind of operations we're doing. So we're looking at what's coming into that system, into that reservoir. We look at what's going on with the dam safety, what are our pool opportunities, how full can we operate the dam? And then we look at, are we doing an FRM operation or are we not? So And if those within those operations, we're looking at what the biological conditions are. What are we trying to release water for? Water quality. Are we doing power generation, maximizing recreation, and we have water supplies. We have a lot of authorized purposes that are using this water in the reservoir and downstream of the reservoir. So those are the things that we're, constantly looking at, and it's very iterative, especially when, if we don't have as much water in the system, we have to adjust our planning based on that. So today I'll just go over overview of where we're at right now and what we're looking to see, and why are we where we're at with the weather and the climate, and then we'll have some opportunities for discussion. So this is just a snapshot of where we were today, just looking from each reservoir. You can, I think we'll have this online if you ever want to look at it, but just seeing where we're at compared to our maximum pools and where our minimums are as we, draw down in the winter. There's a storage amount compared to that on this graphic as well. So right now we're 63% above our minimum pool elevation, but 37% below our authorized summer pool, our maximum conservation pool. And that's from a system perspective, since these dams do operate as a system to meet the entire goals of the Willamette Valley river system. So like I said, we have about 1.6 million acre feet of authorized storage, but there is some limitations given the biological opinion and various other dam safety considerations. So we're a little bit closer to, I think 1.4, maybe closer to 1.3. So there's just a comparison of this year compared to some previous years that we've been monitoring. Last year we're doing a bit better storage-wise, but we're looking very much closely like a 2021 from a system perspective, which, if you remember, 2021 was a very dry year. We had that big heat dome. So we're kind of looking like that kind of 2021, some of the drier conditions. And so this is, precipitation, that water that comes into our basin, that's really a big driver on how much we can fill our reservoirs, and the timing of it is crucial. We do start refilling our projects on February 1st. And so if that water comes in before it's just part of a flood risk management mission. But if it comes in after, it's the balance of our flood risk management and our conservation season. So if we have big storm events, we store that water and we release it. So that doesn't really, not all that water goes to fully filling the reservoir. So we were doing pretty good up until March, and then April, May, and June have been really, really dry, way below normal. And that's just was not part of the forecast going into this year. We were looking at more like what we thought we were going to see in March, that we would see that the rest of the spring, and it did not realize. So although our normal or our annual precipitation is not too bad, it's that spring that we really rely on, and that's where we weren't seeing much water. Additionally, snowpack, that's another contributor to our system. Although it's less, it doesn't really contribute that much to our refill. It really is what provides us a healthier inflow through the summer. And that melted pretty fast too. And even though we had a pretty good, really high snowpack above average going into this season, it melted pretty fast, and it's gone now, and we're not seeing as much of that coming into the natural river system and into the reservoirs. We're just about seeing it. So it's either infiltrated or it's already evaporated and such. So that's part of the contributions to why we're seeing some lower inflows as well. This is just a snapshot of various places within the watershed that those SOTEL sites are that are pretty much not having any snow. I like to communicate what we were looking at like last year and compared to this year. Many folks probably know that we were out of a drought going into this season, and now we are back into somewhat of a various amounts of drought. So between a moderate and severe for the entire Willamette Basin, and that's just that dry conditions is just resulting in that drought. We did see some decent rain this weekend. Thank you, rain. But it's going to be dry again, and it's going to continue to be warm. It's going to be a normal, warm, dry summer. So that's that's what the Weather Service is telling us, and that's what we're feeling right now. This is a snapshot from the River Forecast Center, which is a partner of ours that we rely heavily on in forecasting water supply. And this is looking at what if there was no dams, and this is a snapshot of what's coming through Salem. And so if there were no dams there, this is how much water volume between April through September that we would be expecting to see. And so that's essentially what we would think of as our flow that would be coming through the reservoirs, flow that we would be mitigating based on releasing water for the biological needs based on these conditions on the main stem. And we're at about 66% of normal, which is pretty poor compared to last year where we were at 86. And if you can see this graphic, it goes back from the beginning of the water year. I won't go into a lot of detail, but this red line is just that 50 percentile. So that's what we kind of use as our indicator of what we likely would see. We were going into this spring thinking that we were going to be above average, at least at or above, just based on that time of year. And then after that, it just shot down, and we've not seen. And as we get in, we go through April on, we're actually seeing how much water is coming through. So that goes into that forecast and improves that uncertainty. And that's why you see these bands kind of getting squeezed to closer and closer together. And then you get to a point that's all we're going to see is that much water coming through the system. So that's just to show you what we were seeing going into the forecasting during the initial public meetings, and then what we're seeing now that we're actually going through the summer conditions. And then also it's the same graphic, but 2021, which I said was that really dry year, we were at 52% of normal versus 66 right now. So we're doing, we have better water supply, but it's also, like I said, that timing component and when that water is actually coming in the system. And so we're kind of feeling it a little bit harder than we really were in 2021, just based on that, the timing. And then another little statistical piece of fun, we're at the 71st out of 77 years of the worst water supply at Salem. So 66% is pretty low. 52 that 2021 was our worst. So we're on the lower end of or the higher end, I guess, of our worst years. This is a graphic of showing how that water comes through the system, that timing component. So like I said, March, we did really good. April, May, and June is even below normal. So I'll just skip through that though. This is just looking at some of the flows compared to some previous years at Salem and Albany. And then I'm going to get into the meat of the stuff that you guys are here to talk about, and that is what the forecast actually is. This slide is just a tool that I communicate to various partners on of what we're modeling and all the things that we're considering. So it's really just to show you of a lot of things that we consider when we're planning and managing these reservoirs for all the authorized purposes. And so I'll talk about each one of these a little bit more as I show you what the forecast looks like for each reservoir. But first, the reason why we are releasing the water that we're releasing normally in the summer, at least right now, is because of was the 2008 biological opinion, but now we have a 2024 biological opinion, and we're currently managing to the same type of releases that we had before, but we do have some additional operations, as you've seen during that injunction. Some of those have been carried forward into our routine operations as part of the 2024 biological opinion. So flow management is a big piece of the biological opinion, and we have flow metrics on the main stem at Albany and Salem. And because, and they'll differ based on the water year, and we'll work with our partners to try to find the happy place that we can meet the water quality and fisheries needs and still balance the other authorized purposes. So this is just a graphic of showing what we're looking at. We're likely to look at for Albany and Salem. We've currently seen and what we're planning on seeing. So just to orientate you on this graphic, we've got flow on the left, and this is in CFS, cubic feet per second. And then the date at the bottom, this little dash line here is the time that the model was ran. So I think we ran this about a week ago, or maybe less. And anything before it is the actual, and anything to the right is that forecast. And then you can see there's a little tiny line here. That line represents this minimum flow that we're trying to target because it is a dry year. We're targeting that lower end of this regime here. So you can see how we're targeting that. We're kind of right on that line, similar to the Salem. We're right on that line. So when we're making releases, it's because we're trying to have this water be at the main stem, and there's a lot of different reasons. It's for biological, but also water quality. The projects were authorized to maintain certain flows on the main stem for the health of the river downstream. So this is just looking at it from, this is that storage graphic that I was showing you earlier with the other years. So this is looking at the forecasted component of it, which you'll see that it goes below our minimum, which we'll talk about that when we get to each specific project as we're going through it. But yeah, we're less than, we peaked at less than 1.1 million acre feet of storage. Oh, and here's Eugene and Harrisburg, just a couple additional control point or locations on the main stem that we're monitoring as well. Okay, so here's Hills Creek. So the graphics will be the same for each reservoir as I go through them. The top one is what we call the stacked graph. So this, you can see the pool elevation on the left-hand side and the date on the bottom, and then just a few of the water years, the last, or like, I guess they're calendar years for the last few years, with the red being the current year. So you can see where we're at compared to some previous years. Unfortunately, the colors are not the best for being able to depict where we're at, but we've managed similarly at Hills Creek, as you can see by this line right here. And then we also will manage for temperatures and total dissolved gas for water quality. I will not go into that detail in the following graphics, but they are here for your visual interest. And then this graphic over here in the top right, that is actually our forecasted graphic. And so there we go. The top is the pool elevation. This black, dark line is that what we call the rule curve. And so that's our upper bounds for managing for our conservation season, flood risk management boundary. So if you see, we popped up here, that was doing a flood risk management operation. And then as we're releasing water, for downstream needs, that the pool gets drawn down. So Hills Creek, and then at the bottom we actually have, here's the outflow, the green, or the flow in cubic feet per second, green being the inflow and blue being the outflow, the water that we're releasing. So Hills Creek is heavily supports that main stem goal. Hills Creek is above our Lookout Point project, and so that water goes from Hills Creek into Lookout Point, and then we release from Lookout Point down to Dexter, and then it goes down to the main stem. So that's why you'll see Hills Creek get pulled pretty hard, is that we're using that water for main stem and maintaining that flow. And the bottom graphic here is trying to communicate what these little blue lines, these outflows are, since it's really hard to see on the scale. But here you can see where we're releasing compared to what the minimum flow is for the biological opinion. So this is, we have to at least maintain 400 CFS in the river for the health of the river and for the biological needs. But we will normally release a bit more to support other things such as that main stem downstream. So that's what it's looking like. So we're likely to, we'll keep the pool above Packard, but it'll be drawn down pretty aggressively through the summer as we're supporting that main stem and Lookout Point. So I won't talk about either the Lookout Point or the stack graphs anymore on the graphics, but that is for you to look at and just see where we're at compared to other water years. So with Lookout Point, one of the big things is that we are balancing managing for fish passage, temperature management, water quality from the temperature and total dissolved gas. And we provide a lot of water for that main stem. Intent is we're keeping this reservoir a little bit fuller, and that's why we're pulling from Hills Creek, which allows us to pull water to support the main stem, but also keeps this pool up a little bit higher above. If you can see, there's this little line right here. That's our spillway crest. So the big gates of the dam, we're releasing water from those gates to provide warmer water, which you can actually see on this temperature graphic here, is that it's warmer water. And so we're trying to make the river warmer so that that water is not remaining there later on in the fall, which would be lethal to the life cycle of the fish. I think they're in their eggs are down there. So we'll start doing that drawdown, not necessarily because we're not drawing this down because of the drawdown. We're drawing this down because we're using that water for the biological needs. But we will then get to where we're going to be drawing down for that deep drawdown this winter, which is depicted by this dash line here. So this is different than what we did last year. Things are moving a little bit more to the right because we are now managing it through the biological opinion process. And so the intent is that we're going to be at that low elevation on December 1st, and then probably the intent is to hold it for a month. So we'll be working with folks on that as we get closer to that actual drawdown. But that's what that's looking like right there. So we'll likely have single point boat access for most of the summer, and then we'll likely lose it later on in the early fall. So here's Fall Creek. We were able to get pretty full in Fall Creek. We have a adult fish facility downstream of Fall Creek, so we're really managing releases to maintain that adult fish passage upstream to that fish facility. But we will start picking up releases soon to support that main stem flow that I was talking about earlier. So you can see these little bumps up here. That's us, what we call augmenting that main stem flow. So as the natural river system starts receding, we augment it. We release more water to offset that drier conditions that are being seen down there. So we release quite a bit of water to support that main stem. And then we do have a drawdown at Fall Creek that we do for fish passage. So when we get to early November, we'll draw down that reservoir pretty fast down stream bed, past those fish, and then that reservoir will get refilled back up, and we'll start the season over again. So Fall Creek, we're going to be seeing a lot. You'll see that draft pretty hard, more going into August as we're pulling harder on that reservoir. But we'll have the North Shore boat ramp available for the entire season, it looks like. And then Cougar's an interesting one. We've changed the operations quite a bit. We've got this delayed refill for fish passage. We did have some storm events which caused the reservoir to go up and down. And then with this delayed refill, by the time we started to refill, we just did not get the inflows there that we would have liked to see. So the reservoir has been staying pretty low. We're just releasing the minimum biological flow. And we've actually even did a little reduction to try to help the refill. So this water does support the main stem, but there's not any additional releases that we will be doing from this project given the small volume that's there. And then we will draw down slightly as part of the new operations at Cougar for fish passage as well. So unfortunately, there's no boat ramp access at Cougar at these low elevations. So now going over to the Mackenzie, we got Blue River, or it was the Mackenzie, but Cougar and Blue River nearby. Blue River has been really doing pretty good. We've been able to keep it pretty full, just releasing mostly the minimum. But because I was saying that main stem is going to start getting drier, it's been pretty consistent in our models that we're going to have to pull on Blue River and increase releases to support that main stem, which does happen most years. We wind up pulling about 300 to 500 CFS. And when you just don't see a lot of inflows, it does draft pretty hard. And unfortunately, this is another reservoir that our boat ramp access is only at the higher elevations. So it's likely we'll see that Saddle Dam boat ramp no longer be accessible by the end of August. But like Dustin said, please do check the teacup diagram and reach out to folks if you plan on going out there. And there may be access, but there may not be, and you want to make sure you're not making unnecessary travels. Okay, over on the Coast Fork, we've got Cottage Grove, and I'll talk about Drain and next. There are much smaller reservoirs, and they have different hydrology than some of our other ones. You know, they have a different mountain range. And so we had a big storm event, and we evacuated that water as we were required to per our flood risk management requirements. And we were on that roll curve, and it just got dry. And so as it got dry, inflows were less than our outflow, and we're just starting to see that recession of the reservoir happen. We did reduce our outflows. Our minimum flows are normally 75 CFS through June. We've reduced from 75 to 50 CFS a little bit earlier on the 12th of June. Not a lot, but every little CFS does help. So we did reduce it a little bit earlier to slow that draft a tiny bit. So it looks like Wilson will be open for a while. There is another boat ramp that is below this graphic that is not shown on here. I'm just noticing. So we will have a boat ramp still available at Cottage Grove. There's just be the lower boat ramp, but still a very full reservoir and should be pretty full. Still quite a bit of water through the season. And then similarly, Jarena, a big storm event that we had St. Patrick's weekend, I think it was, and we evacuated that water. And once we got on roll curve, things just kind of slowed down. We've also reduced Jarena a little earlier from 190 CFS down to 100 CFS, which technically would normally start on the 1st. So we started that a little bit on the earlier side and slowed down that draft. As you can see, looks like we're right on the Harmons Park boat ramp. So that one will probably likely be disconnected, but Baker Bay will still be available throughout the summer. And then Fern Ridge just keeps on seeing decent inflows, and we've been able to keep that pretty full. The big thing with Fern Ridge, our releases are primarily just for irrigation. And so as irrigation demands are increased, we have to release more water to augment that removal of water in the stream to ensure that the long tom is healthy. So we haven't done that much augmentation that I'm tracking. So we've been able to maintain a lower flow just for the season, and we'll be able to have pretty good recreation at Fern Ridge this summer with all boat ramps available. Now getting over to Green Peter. So now in the South San Am, it's been a little bit more of a challenge at Green Peter this year. Like I said, that we do have these main stem flow goals, and because Salem is a driver earlier on in the spring, we pulled from Green Peter to support some of that main stem. The San Am projects, they don't flow into Albany, which is where that Albany becomes the driver of our flow requirements in the summer. So we can't pull on it later on in the season and have that same effect. So we did pull on it a little bit harder this summer or this spring, and you can see that in this drawdown. And that was prior to the recognition of it being so dry this year. But so that's kind of, I guess, how we got in this drawdown here. This is just because we've been supporting that main stem flow and then that minimum requirement for the actual South San Am tributary. We did reduce Foster, since it's a Green Peter Foster system, we did reduce Foster 100 CFS a few weeks ago, a little bit earlier. So we were able to reduce a little bit more there, but it's still not likely to be able to hold for very much longer, or won't stay full for the summer. So we'll likely be able to, lose boat ramp access, prior to the Labor Day. Probably around Labor Day area. So we'll be monitoring this area, these conditions. We'll see what we can do. We're also doing monitor for temperature management. So a lot of what we're doing at Green Peter is temperature management. So you'll see us managing Green Peter as we're learning more about how the best practices for Green Peter. And then we are doing that drawdown at Green Peter. Like Lookout Point, it is going to be different. The intent is that we'll be at that low pool by December 1st. So it's moved to the right. So you can see where the reservoir is going to intersect with what we were intending to be the drawdown this season, would be early November. And then we did already get a concurrence with our partners at ODFW and NIMS, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, and National Marine Fisheries Service. And so we're going to reduce our flows to 1,200 CFS instead of this 1,500 CFS later in the fall. That will help us a little bit more too here. So we are doing some modifications given that it's a drier conditions where we can. And then Foster, which is just downstream of Green Peter, and Foster is really it's a re-regulation dam, but also a storage dam. So really the water that Foster is used is from what we're releasing from Green Peter, and then the South Sandy Am local flow into the reservoir. So we typically try to manage the reservoir between 635 and 637, but it is difficult as we're doing power peaking and there's a lot of other things that are happening, but that is technically our goal. We manage the pool near that elevation before Memorial Day and through Labor Day. So the exact timing of drawdown is likely to be like around the week after Labor Day. Especially given the additional storage that we could be using from Foster to support some of those flows. So the timing of the drawdown may change given some other conditions. So definitely keep an eye on Foster as you're planning on using Foster. And then here's Detroit. So Detroit, I looked back at what we were modeling earlier this summer, and we're looking at about the 25 percentile of the traces that we had forecasted earlier this year, which is pretty typical of what we're seeing in a lot of the projects. So it is lower than what we were seeing earlier this year. We are releasing the what we call that 2008 minimum biological opinion flow. So we're releasing what we're required to release. And we have been we've requested a reduction in this July flow and still waiting on concurrence. So you'll see, so we're trying to go from 1,200 to 1,000 earlier. So we may be able to extend a little bit longer. One of the things that we do at Detroit is we do fish passage and temperature operations, and we're using that spillway, those gates again, to release warmer water from the surface so we don't have that lot of temperature or a lot of warm water later on in the fall. So the longer we can extend that spillway usage does benefit the fish as well. So that's what we're looking at trying to do. All right, so I just have some useful, what I think are useful links. And this is an opportunity for questions. And I did see some things in the chat. So Kelly, I let you facilitate.
Yeah, thanks, Lena, and thanks, Justin. I have turned on the chat. The chat you're seeing is just mine.
Yeah,
so folks on the line, feel free to enter in any chats or any questions you have for the presenters. I also am happy to unmute folks that have just called in. So if we don't get any chats from or questions from those who are online, I can go one by one and unmute folks. I'll just list the last 4 digits of your number, unmute you, and ask if you'd like to ask a question. If you don't, just say, no, I don't have any questions, thanks, and I'll remute you. You'll probably get some sort of prompt on the phone when I do unmute you. So we'll give it a minute. I see we have one question coming in.
while we're waiting for the questions to come up, something I meant to say earlier, and Selena kind of hit on it. I know we spent a lot of time dwelling on kind of where we are and what a tough year it is. There's a lot of recreation opportunities out there. And even though this compares to a pretty significantly dry year in 21 and the impacts to that were very severe in some places, it really came in differently this year in different places. And so I don't want the takeaway message to be that there's not opportunity out there. There certainly is. Also want to remind people, and part of the reason for doing this is that those levels are lower than what you would normally see under average or above average conditions. So there are different safety hazards out there that folks need to be aware of. And so you'll see things, tree roots and stumps that are exposed, areas where you may have been used to boating. And so we really want to make sure that folks are aware that things are different out there this year, and to take measures to be safe while they're out on the water.
Thanks, Dustin. We have a question. What is the forecast for boat ramp usage at Detroit?
Yeah, so I got the graphic here, and I mean, there's a lot of boat ramps at the marinas and Hoover, and there's just you can see like this bunch of here. This is all a bunch of boat ramps right here. So it's pretty much early August that a lot of those are looking like they might be disconnected based on what elevations we have noted here. But definitely check with folks to make sure that is that they don't have, make sure that what they have is what we have, or maybe they have something better. And then the state G, it looks more like maybe September 1st that we would right around Labor Day. So it depends on how actual inflows will come in, and if we can get any reduction. So please keep an eye on the teacups and reach out if you have any questions as we get closer to that time.
To Rick's question, so, and again, this is an area where we're talking about with our partners some modifications to the flow, which can shift that date a little bit to the right. Really good idea to make sure that you're using the teacup diagram, which I think gives you a little bit better visual than this does, and then to reach out directly to marina operators, the state parks folks that can give you kind of a better forecast day to day of where they're at and how those areas are performing. So it may shift a little bit. The model that we're showing is not, it's not a real fine detail model, and it may shift a little bit based on changes in flow operations that we're talking about now.
Yeah. Thanks for your question, Rick.
All right. Did the rain last week help at all with Detroit's levels?
Let me see.
The question was specific to Detroit. I was watching most all of the pools, and we really did not see significant changes to inflows that I could see anywhere. It made the grass greener. It probably diminished our fire hazards, at least temporarily, but not significant impacts to inflows that I could see. Selena?
No, I was just pulled up the teacups just to see what I could. Yeah, not really. I mean, any water helps. Anything that gets back into even the ground, it'll help us even next year. Like it's all helpful, but it didn't help with the water levels or really inflows to the reservoir.
I've just went ahead and allowed all the mics for the various numbers. You should get a prompt to unmute yourself. It's like *6 maybe, or *9. Go ahead and chime in if you have a question. Otherwise, we're just waiting for any other chats. And if we don't hear from any folks in the next couple minutes, we'll adjourn. Hey, Selena, do you want to put that last slide up just in case folks are trying to write down those key websites, and I can actually add them to the chat if that's helpful.
My picture cropped that one out, but
and people can click those links.
Well, if there aren't questions, and we'll certainly hang around for a little bit. I don't want folks to hang out unnecessarily. I appreciate people dialing in on a very nice evening. I don't think at this point we have another update planned. It's not likely that, unless there's some significant inflow, that our forecast is going to change in a major way. We'll continue to update, and we're providing some updates directly to recreation providers and others at various reservoirs as we normally do. And the teacup diagram, as we continue to mention, which is in that link, is a great way to stay current on what's happening in the system. I'll pause there. I see it looks like we've got a comment coming in.
Do you have an idea how long the water levels will be high enough for Detroit marinas?
Yeah, Tim, that's a great question, and it's one that I would really steer to Luke out there. We had a meeting earlier today, kind of talk about forecast levels. They're looking very closely at some of these proposed flow modifications. The really exciting thing for Detroit is, my understanding is that dredging work to deepen access into the marinas is going to go on this year, so that's factoring into their plans. But I don't want to speak for Luke out there. So I would encourage folks, if you're looking at Detroit or Cairns, to reach out directly to those folks. We have individual meetings with the marina operators to kind of update them on current operations and help them plan. So there's still a lot of season for them left in there, but I know that they're also making some plans around that major effort that's been talked about for quite a while now, and I think will make a huge difference for marina access going into next season. So that's exciting.
All right. Well, I think with that, we will end the meeting. Thanks so much again, everyone, for taking some time out of your evening to learn more about the forecast, and check out these sites. Hopefully we'll provide other updates. You'll hear about it through the regular channels. Thanks so much.